edition. Vande Shri Guru Gaurango Radha Govinda Sundaro Sagunau Giyate Chata Gita Gudarta Gauravam. Bowing down to the holy feet of Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, and Shri Radha Govinda Sundar, all accompanied by their associates, I sing the glories of the hidden treasure of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And then going ahead to where we left off, I think we were on chapter 11, right? Verse 11. I think we concluded with this, reflecting on this comment of our Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj on this 11th verse of the first chapter. And our Gurudev drew out this point, that although we may have many differences amongst ourselves, when it comes to our higher cause, we will try to leave those differences aside. Okay, so we can continue with verse 12. And, and in this first chapter, it is mostly setting the scene. Okay, so maybe we can chant. I like to chant a chunk of verses at once. So I'll start with verse 12 and maybe we can sing the next 5 or so verses. Okay. Simhanada minadyochai shankam dadmo pratapavan. Oh, sorry, I went ahead too much. Okay. Tasya sanjanayan harsham guru vidya pitamaha simhanada minadyochai shankam dadmo pratapavam tata shankascha biryascha panavana kagomuka sahasaiva bhyahanyanta sa shabdastumulo bhavat tata shete hayer yukte mahati syandane stito madhava pandavaschaiva divyo shanko pradadmatu panchajanyam hishikesho devadatam dhananjaya Kondram dadmo mahashankam bhimakarma vikrodara ananta vijayam raja kunti putro yudhishthira nakula sahadevascha sugosha mani pushpako kasyascha parameshwasa shikandicha maharata Trishtadyumno viratascha satyakischa parajitaha Drupado jopadeyascha sarvasha pritivipate Sobhajascha mahabahu shankandadmu pitak pitak Sagosho dhartaraschanam hridayani vyadarayat Nabascha pritivim chaiva tumulo vyanunandayan. I'm going to stop there. So that was taking us up to verse 19, 12 to 19. Then with a war cry, like the roar of a lion, the venerable elder Bhishma loudly blew his conch shell to encourage Duryodhana. At once there arose a tumultuous vibration of conch shells, kettle drums, hand drums, bugles, and the resounding of many instruments. Then Lord Shri Krishna and Arjuna, in a magnificent chariot drawn by white horses, blew their divine conch shells. Rishikesh, another name for Krishna. Oh dear, we've had an accident over here. Okay. It's okay though, some broken glass, but it's okay. Rishikesh, another name for Krishna. So you'll see that, in the Vedic perspective, from a spiritual perspective, everywhere is consciousness, So you'll see that the Lord and all the Kshatriyas, actually, their conch shells have particular names, And every warrior also has a unique mark, a unique flag, which identifies them. So Rishikesh, it's another name for Krishna, meaning Lord of the senses, master of the senses. Rishikesh blew his conch shell Panchajanya, Dhananjaya, it's a name for Arjuna, sounded the Devadatta, and Bhimsen, the performer of mighty tasks, blew the conch shell, Pondra. King Yudhisthira, the son of Kunti, blew the Ananta Vijay, while Nakul and Sahadev blew the conch shells, Sugosha and Manipushpaka. O Lord of the earth, the skilled archer Kashiraj, the great warrior Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, King Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, King Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the mighty son of Subhadra, Abhimanyu, all blew their conch shells. Resounding throughout the land and heavens, the tremendous vibration of those conch shells pierced the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So this is quite an ominous statement. And our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, he commented like this is like even before the battle has begun, but it's already kind of like setting the tone and indicating how things are going to end. So, because, anyone who is behaving dishonestly, there's a part of them that knows that. They may not even be able to acknowledge it to themselves in a conscious way, but there's a part of them that knows. And so similarly, the sons of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana and his brothers, there's a part of them that knows what they're doing is wrong, and that the Pandavas are righteous, that they are the righteous heroes in this occurrence. So they're here, they're hearing like this, the conch shell, one of the symbolisms of the conch shell is victory, righteousness, victory. So they're hearing this sound of the conch shells coming from the side of the Pandavas, and it's shaking their hearts. They know that ultimately, they will be the losers in this battle. So it's an ominous statement here. So continuing with verse 20. Atavyavastitan drishtra dhartarashtrang kapitvaja pravrite shastra sampatte dhanarudyamya pandava vishikesham tadavakyam idam maha mahipate. Arjuna uvacha senayor ubayor madhye ratam stapaya mechuta yavadeta niriksheham yodukamam avashtitan kermaya saha yodavyam asmin rana samudyame yotsyamanam aviksheham yaete cha samagata dhartarastrasya dorbuddhir yude priya chikirshava. So verse 20 to 23. O king, as the battle was about to commence, Arjuna, whose chariot was adorned with the flag of Hanuman, seeing Duryodhana and his army poised for battle, took up his bow and said to Sri Krishna, O Krishna, please place my chariot between the two armies, so I may observe the warriors with whom I must contend on this battlefield, and who have come to fight for the satisfaction of the wicked Duryodhana. Sanjaya uvacha evam mukto rishikesho gurakeshena bharata senayor ubayor madhye stapayitra ratotamam bhishma drona pramukata sarvesham cha mahikshitam uvacha partha pashyaitam samavetan kuruniti. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharat, after the vigilant Arjuna spoke these words, Sri Krishna, the Lord of the perceptions of all living beings, drew the grand chariot between both armies, between Bhishma, Drona, and all the chieftains of the earth. The Lord then said, O Partha, behold the Kauravas assembled here for battle. So what a scene. What a dramatic scene. These two great, powerful armies, stretching as far as the eye can see on either side. And then Arjuna, just at the last moment before they begin, Arjuna's starting to feel some doubts, so asking Krishna, take me into the middle, so Krishna takes Arjuna out into the middle between these two armies, so he can view both sides. So it's a very dramatic scene. And our Gurudev, he commented on this once a little humorously, how this great philosophical discourse, it came out, in this very unexpected way. But it's interesting though. I was reflecting, life is like this actually. We get bewildered by the objective circumstances of our reality, but it's really the subjective side that we are trying to move towards, and so the exact circumstances that precipitate, that inspire revelation, realization, we don't always need to give so much importance to them. That's playing out in the background. So in very unexpected circumstances, sometimes, the highest truths and highest revelation may come. So even here in this very unexpected situation, in between, in a battlefield, as a war is about to break out, this great philosophical discourse comes out. So moving on to verse 6. Tatra pashyat stitan partha pichanata pitamahan acharyan matulan brachin putran potran sakim stata swashadan surhidaschaiva senayor ubayorapi tan samiksha sakunteya sarvan bandhu navashtitan dipaya paraya vishto vishidanidam abravit. There within both armies, Arjuna saw paternal and maternal elders, grandfathers, teachers, brothers, sons, grandsons, fathers-in-law, friends, and other well-wishers. Seeing his kinsmen present on the battlefield, Arjuna, the son of Kunti, was grief-stricken and overcome with pity. I mean, what a scene, what kind of a situation, to see literally your own family members on the opposing side, how heartbreaking, how unbearable could such a thing be? And, this is something anyone can sympathize with, but what to speak of within the Vedic, traditional Vedic culture, where family is sacred. Literally, family is sacred. The ancestors are worshipable, and it's not only your immediate family members, but, there's this whole consciousness of, the predecessors and future family. It's so, it's a family-based, and on one level, it's a family-based society, very family-centered society. So, and within that kind of culture, to be on the enemy side, is very, very, very difficult situation. Vepatuscha sharire me romaharshascha jayate gandivam shramsate hastat tvakchaiva paridayate nacha shoknum yavastatum pramativa cha me manaha nimitani cha pashyami viparitani keshava nacha shreyonu pashyami hatva swajanamahave nakangshe vijayam Krishna nacha rajyam sukhanicha. Oh Krishna, seeing Arjuna's continuing, oh Krishna, seeing all these relatives and friends assembled and eager for battle, the strength is draining from my limbs and my mouth feels parched. I am trembling and the hairs on my body are standing on end. My skin is burning and I am losing grip of my Gandiva bow. O Keshava, I cannot maintain my composure any longer. My mind is disturbed and I see bad omens. I do not see any good in killing my kinsmen in this battle. O Krishna, I have no wish for victory or to enjoy a kingdom. So if the purpose of all of this is just so I can, achieve all this wealth and position and opulence, I'm not interested in that. Then why am I here? What is the purpose of this? Kim no rajena govinda, kim bhoge jivitena va, yesha marte kankshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhanicha, taime vastita yudhe pranam staktva dhananicha, acharya pitara putras tataiva cha pitamaha, matula shvashura putra, shala sambandhinastata, etana huntam ichami, natopi madhusudana, api trailokya rajyasya, heto kimnu mahi krite, nihatya dartarashchanna, kapriti syaj janardana, kapam mivashayedasman, hatvaitana tatayina, tasmanarha vayam hantum, tartarascham sabandhavam, swajanam hi katam hatva, sukina shama madhava. O Govinda, if those for whom we desire all of this, teachers, paternal and maternal elders, sons, grandfathers, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are about to risk their wealth and lives in battle, of what value is our kingdom and its royal pleasures, or even life itself? O Madhusudan, I do not wish to kill them, even though I myself may be killed. So, so far, Arjuna is making a pretty good argument, isn't he? Everything he's saying, this all makes a lot of sense. And, what is the real purpose of wealth? It is to share with others, to share with those that we care about. So he's saying this is all warped. If I'm going to obtain wealth at the expense of people I care about, that's exactly the opposite of what I want. Rather, I want wealth to share with others. And then this point is also quite profound that he's bringing up here. I do not wish to kill them, even though I myself may be killed. Now, this is a really beautiful point, really important point. That what is it that we want? We want to be in a place of righteousness at all times, whether or not others are reciprocating with that. So even if others are coming at me, to attack me, I will not be moved from my position of righteousness. Even if they are coming to destroy me, I will not respond to that. So even if I have to give up my own life in order not to take their life, in order not to attack them, I'm ready to accept that. But I must do good. Whether others are doing good or not, that's not my concern. But I must be situated in righteousness. I must be situated in goodness. This is Arjuna's argument here. O Arjuna, even if we gain sovereignty over the three worlds, not to speak of ruling the earth, how can we be happy if we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra? Only sin will befall us if we slay our teachers and guardians, though they be our adversaries. So even if they're posing as our enemies, still they hold some position of respect. So how can we attack them? We cannot take the lives of our own relatives, the sons of Dhritarashtra. O Madhava, how can we be happy by killing our kinsmen? Yadyapyetena pashyanti lobopahata chetasa, kulakshaya kritam dosham mitradohe chapatakam, katam na gyeyam asmabi paparasma nivartitam, kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashyadbir janardana, kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharma sanatana, dharme nashte kulam kritsnam, Adharmo bhavatyuta, adharma bhavat Krishna, pradushyanti kulastriya, Shrishu dushta savarshneya, jayate varna shankara, shankaro narakayaiva, kula jnanam kulasya cha, patanti pitaro yesham lupta pindo dakakriya, doshe etai kulaganam, varna sankara karakai, utsadyante jati dharma, kula dharmascha shashvata. Now here's another really beautiful point. Although they, overwhelmed with greed, cannot see the sin of betraying one's friends and destroying the dynasty, O Janardhan, how can we not refrain from this heinous act, being in full knowledge of the consequences? So, wow, this is a really major point here. You know, that no, they are in a sense, and this is a principle. This is a principle of life, that if someone is doing wrong but in ignorance, then they are less accountable. You know, but if we have knowledge, if we have acquaintance and appreciation for higher principles, and we do wrong, then you are to be held much more accountable. You know? So he's saying, from this, you know, very magnanimous kind of view, you know, that in a sense, I can't blame them, because they're under the influence of these lower energies. They're overcome by the power of greed. And therefore, you know, we cannot blame them. You know. However, we know of a higher way of being. We know of higher principles. We know that this is wrong. So what's the excuse for us? You know, how do we justify what we're doing? You know? It's mentioned also in the Mahabharata. You know, there's this famous incident in the Mahabharata when Draupadi, right? She's being disrobed by Dushasana, one of the younger brothers of Duryodhana. Now, this is one of the most famous and, you know, painful events of the Mahabharata. You know, this chaste, beautiful, exalted princess, you know, being treated in such a lowly way by this, you know, degraded prince, you know, and he's publicly trying to shame her by disrobing her, you know, in this huge public assembly. But there's one interesting point that's made in the Mahabharata. Maybe you won't find it in some of the condensed editions, but in one I've seen in one of the more complete editions, there's a very interesting comment there that actually you know, there were, within that assembly, there were so many persons there, including many of the elders, you know, and many of the advisors, you know, so, you know, like highly cultured and, you know, evolved persons, you know, known for their knowledge and their integrity, their, you know, gentlemanly behavior and so on and so forth. They were present also. And so this interesting comment is made, is that they were to be considered more at blame than even the persons committing the sinful act, you know, because they sat there silently, and they had the knowledge that this was wrong, and they had the power to stop it, but they didn't do anything. They sat silently. You know, they knew better than anyone, you know, how disgraceful and how inappropriate this was, but they didn't take any action. You know, and so Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he makes this point, you know, that, you know, we do have some responsibility to our environment, you know, and if something is going on that is wrong in front of us, then if we have the power to do something to prevent it, then it is our duty to do so. You know, and if we don't, then a part of the blame for that will come to us. You know, that it's different if we're a powerless person, right? If we're a nobody, you know, or if we say something, sometimes we get, you know, this, like a misguided sense of righteousness, right? And we go out and try to save the world, right? And save everyone and save everything. But we may just make things worse, or nobody really cares what we think, then that's a different story. But if we're in a position where we can do something and people will hear us, then it's actually our duty to stand up and make our voice heard. So that's an interesting point. So this is so wonderful what Arjuna is saying here. And these are kind of basic foundational elementary ideas of duty and dharma, and then like building on that, there are so many finer and higher things to be discussed. And Lord Ramachandra, one of the avatars of Krishna, he is the epitome. He personifies dharma in its highest sense. And so this kind of mood is also expressed in the Leela, in the divine play of Lord Ramachandra, that if others will do wrong to me, then that is their business to do so. I have no complaints, but I will continue to do good for them, because that is my duty. And nothing will stop that. Nothing can stop that. I will not be moved from my position of righteousness, no matter how unrighteous others may be, even if directed at me. It is a very noble and high way to live. And we aspire for such a way of life. Okay, we'll read a little bit more, and then I'd love to hear some comments from our wonderful group here. Let's see, where are we? Oh, we'll just finish this chapter, almost at the end of the chapter. So picking up in verse 39. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharma sanatana dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bibhavatyuta adharma bibhavat krishna padushanti kulastriya Strishu dushtasu varshneya jayate vana shankaraha shankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro yesham lupta pindodaka kriya doshe itai kulagnanam varna sankarakarai utsadyante jati dharma kula dharmashta shashvataha Utsana kula dharmanam manushyanam janardana nadake niyatambaso bhavatityanushushuma ahobata mahatpapam kartam yavasita vayam yadraja sukalubena hantam sajanamudyata yadimam rapati kadam ashtrastram shastrapanaya Tartarascharane hanyus tanme kshemataram bhavet. Up to verse 45. With the decline of the dynasty, its religious traditions are lost. When religious traditions are lost, irreligion overcomes the entire dynasty. O Krishna, descendant of the Vrishni dynasty, when the dynasty is thus corrupt, dynasty, I'm not sure which is the right one. I think it depends what part of the world you're in. When the dynasty is thus overcome by irreligion, the women of the family become corrupt, and adulterated progeny is the result. Adulterated progeny forces both the family and its aggressors into a hellish existence. The same fate befalls their ancestors because regular offerings of food and water to them cease. Such heinous acts by the destroyers of the dynasty are the cause of adulterated progeny, ruining the culture of a civilized society and noble lineage. O Janardhan, we have heard that persons whose familial, social, and religious traditions are disrupted dwell always in hell. Alas, what a grave sin we have resolved to commit. Driven by greed for trifling royal happiness, we are about to slay our own kinsmen. If unarmed and unresisting, I am killed on this battlefield by the armed sons of Dhritarashtra, that will be more auspicious for me. So again, Arjuna is bringing up a lot of good arguments. Like war, it's not just this, battle between two sides, but there's this, there are major after effects, there are major consequences that trickle down throughout society for generations afterwards. And, and this is something that's kind of at the forefront at the moment within our society, with this war going on, between Ukraine and Russia. There are so many consequences and consequences of consequences that are developing as a result of that. It destroys society on so many levels. So Arjuna's bringing up, some arguments that we can all understand, we can all relate to.
There's a question, Vishaka Dasi.
Okay, I'm just going to finish the chapter because there's just one verse left, and then we can go to questions and discussion. So coming to the very last verse, and then Arjuna's concluding with this heart-rending statement. This is the imagery here is so powerful. If unarmed and unresisting, I am killed on this battlefield by the armed sons of Dhritarashtra, that will be better for me. That will be more auspicious for me. Sanjaya Vacha. Evam yuktva Arjuna sankhe ratopasta upavishat vishijasa shadam chapam shoka samvigna manasaha. Sanjaya said, there on the battlefield, speaking these words, Arjuna cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his heart filled with sadness. Wow, like, are we there with him or not? Like, this is so moving. This is so powerful. This is more, more than like the best Hollywood scene. Like, this is so much more moving and powerful than that. Iti Shri Mahabharate Shata Sahasriyam Samhitayam Vayasikyam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Sainya Darshanam Nama Pratamo Jayaha. End of chapter 1, observing the armies. From the conversation of Shri Krishna and Arjuna in Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, the yoga scripture of transcendental knowledge in Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses. So this is the conclusion of chapter 1. We'll close our reading here for today. So we are ending on a cliffhanger. We're all eager to know what's going to happen next at this very dramatic moment. And we have a question here from Seva Rupa Devidasi in South Africa. Dandavat. How can I decipher if the environment is always favorable and when to act against something that I should consider as wrong? Okay. Very good question. And there's this famous Shakespearean comment or quote, right? Famous Shakespearean quote, to be or not to be, this is the question, right? And I studied some Shakespeare at school, but the text which that comes from was not, I don't believe it was one that I went through. But anyway, I recently looked into that, like what is actually the context, and that's actually the same question that you're raising here, like when to react and when not to react. That's what's actually being stated there, to be or not to be. I like to let it pass, or to stand up and say something, or do something, to be, or not to be. That's the idea there in that expression. So when to be and when not to be, when to act and when not to react. There is this important verse in the Manu Samhita, which is very helpful, and it's a definition of dharma, or it's a description of how to understand, how to determine what our dharma is. And our Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj, he had this verse inscribed on the Samadhi Mandir of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And our Gurudev he added his own inscription. He posed the question, Dharma ki, in Bengali. Simple Bengali means what is Dharma? And then he had this verse inscribed underneath, which is Vidvad bi sevita shadbir nityam advesha ragi bi hridayena byanugyato yodharmastam nibodhataha. So there are four points that are mentioned here, points that should be considered when we're trying to determine what is the right course of action. And the first is, to consult with the scripture. Like, is there any precedent in scripture? Is there some clear statement, that this is the right thing or this is the wrong thing? And is it right for me to act on it or not? Can we think of any scriptural reference for that, advice for that? And then the second point mentioned is the sadhus, the saints. And if we can consult with someone like in a living way, then that is the most helpful, that is the best. But that may not always be possible. Sometimes it may be that we can, like in my own life, we don't have our Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj physically present with us, but I had the good fortune to spend some time, in his association. And we've also heard so much, from his talks and, books. And so often, if I'm facing a particular situation, I'm trying to understand what's the proper way to deal with this, then I'll reflect. Like, oh, well, there was a similar situation that Gurudev dealt with, and this is how he responded. This was how he dealt with it. Then that's so valuable for me. Of course, it is tricky in knowing when exactly and how to apply and if to apply. That requires some discernment. But that is, can be taken into account, right, when we're trying to make a decision. And then third point that's mentioned here, this is really important, that our decision has to be free from personal bias, from personal prejudice. The phrase is nityam advesha ragibi. Is that it? But that, like normally in this world, we're kind of functioning on this binary level of aversion and attraction, right? Like, dislike, right? Like, we like someone if they did something nice for us, and we don't like them if they did something bad to us, right? We tend to be motivated, we tend to, have these instincts that, act in response to our personal interest, is what I'm saying. Like, we may be unable to appreciate someone because they did something that hurt us on a personal level, right? Like for example, sometimes, you will hear, we may go through it ourselves, right? Like, someone's being glorified, and then another person will say, yeah, but they did this to me. Well, does that mean that person is just like on the blacklist because they did something to you? Like, can we not just appreciate them, for all the wonderful things that they did, as they are as individuals? Does everything have to be good or bad depending on how they have personally affected us? So like, in other words, like, going more specifically to your question,
like we have to ask ourselves, is my desire to say or do something being motivated by personal interests? Right? That can be tricky. That can be tricky. Am I really coming from a place of righteousness? And another point, like as a general principle, again, general, everything can change according to particular specific circumstances, but generally speaking, we will try to tolerate insults against ourselves, but insults against others, other Vaishnavas, guru, that we won't be so tolerant about. Then we may need to say something. Our general tendency will be that what negativity is coming towards ourselves, we will take that for our purification. We will try to learn from that. That is our duty, to correct ourselves and seek goodness, collect goodness from the environment, correct our own defects and collect goodness from others. This is our general tendency. So, but if a Vaishnava or someone who's dependent on us, someone in our care, or someone who is respectable, honorable to us, if they are being criticized, offended, then we may need to say something. But then we also have to consider our personal capacity and position. And there's one famous incident, and this is mentioned in maybe Search for Shri Krishna, one of our books, where this happened in Vrindavan. And there was one very foolish man, a Brahmin, there. And there's a famous statement of Raghunath Das Goswami, one of our great teachers, where he's very humbly offering his respects. And he mentions a list of different persons. One of them is the residents of the Dham, of the Holy Lands, the birthplace of Krishna, Vrindavan. Then he also offers his respects to the Brahmins, who are the highest, most honored, group within India. And he's offering this deep mood of respect to them. And then this foolish man, he said, oh, well, I'm a Brahmin and I also live in Vrindavan. I am so great. Even Raghunath Das Goswami, he is offering worship to us. He made this kind of arrogant statement. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he's very important in our line. He is known as the Prayojan Acharya, the teacher who has shown us what is our highest ideal in Krishna consciousness. Very important position in our line. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, our great grandfather guru, he heard this and he became very disturbed. And he started fasting. And he said he wouldn't eat anything. He wouldn't take a morsel of food unless there was some rectification, unless there was some apology for such an insult to such a great acharya, such a great Vaishnava. And then finally, there was some reconciliation. That man made an apology. But then, and Saraswati Thakur, he really did fast for, maybe it was a day or two. And then those in his group, they also started fasting. It was quite a dramatic incident. But anyway, then later somebody asked Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, why did you even pay any attention to that man? It's like, like if a dog barks, it's not very significant. Like, why did you allow yourself to be bothered by such a thing? A fool said something foolish, so why should we be bothered? And Saraswati Thakur replied, saying that, it's my duty to say something because I am holding the position that I am. Like, I'm in this position of the leader of this group, the Sampradaya Acharya, and it's my duty to protect the dignity of my gurus. So I have to say something. It's not appropriate for me to quietly ignore it. And then he said, but however, Saraswati Thakur continued, however, if I was living as an ordinary Babaji, You know, if I was like quietly continuing with my spiritual practice, you know, just living, you know, practicing in an individual way, no responsibility to others. And he said, then I would have just left this place quietly. So I didn't have to hear such offensive talk. You know, that was his comment. So this is, you know, the general principle, you know, that if we are in the position to say something, then we should say it. But if we are not, then we may just make it worse, right? If we say something, and if that is the case, then we can just walk away. You know, we can try to avoid such a situation. So, you know, first we have to determine, you know, is this acceptable or not? Like what we are perceiving as wrong, is it really wrong? And, you know, and there is also a tendency to kind of blow up. There's a human tendency to blow up, you know, turn molehills into mountains, right? And, you know, I mean, I've been through that many times. Like you kind of lose perspective and you get overexcited. Oh, how could they do this? How could they do that? How could they say this? And then I mentioned it to a friend and like, well, I mean, if you think about it within the big picture, it's not such a big deal, actually, you know. So it's really helpful to get that perspective from others. You know, sometimes just phoning a friend, that can really help. So first we have to determine, like, is there something really reprehensible taking place? I'm sorry, somebody has some static noise. I don't know who that is. You can turn off your mic.
Dana's you.
Oh, okay. Great to see you, Dana, and others who have also joined. We have our friend Dana Saraswati Didi from London is also with us, and Jayadev, and also Govinda has joined us. Great to be here with all of you. There's Saraswati Didi on the mat. Our VIP member here. So, you know, first we have to try and get some clarity on, like, is this really a situation that warrants correction, or is it not such a big deal? You know, like, you know, it was something I experienced with Gurudev, that he wasn't always eager to correct people and set them straight. Like, he preferred to let them work things out for themselves, you know, and he may give some hints. So yeah, first we have to determine, does this really warrant correction? Is it serious enough for that? We have to determine that. And then the second question is am I in the right position to say something or not? You know, do I hold that position? You know, one point that Gurudev made about this is that it's a matter of relationship. You know, what kind of relationship do we have with that person? And he made one very nice comment that correction should come from a senior to a junior with a mood of affection. You know, senior to a junior with a mood of affection. You know, not like as an excuse to lord it over people. No, it shouldn't come with that kind of mood, or to demonstrate, you know, our superiority or whatever it may be, you know. But like, there should be a mood of genuine affection, like you care about this person, you're concerned about, you know, an important issue, you know. It should come with the right mood, and we have that kind of relationship where they're happy to hear from us. They you know, they have enough respect and regard and affection that they're happy to take instruction. And sometimes what we can do is we can refer it to somebody else. You know, I do that sometimes. You know, if I see something wrong and I don't feel like I'm the right person to do anything about it, then I'll refer to somebody. I'll tell somebody else about it who I think is in a better position to handle it. And then I think, well, I've done my duty. You know, I've done what I could. You know, and now I have to you know, detach a little bit. You know, let go. You know, we have to remember too that, you know, we don't see the big picture. You know, we're seeing one part of the puzzle, and there are so many other things playing in the background that we may not be aware of, and there may be some particular purpose for what's taking place. So these are the first 3 points mentioned in that verse. What is the word of the scripture? What is the word of the sadhu, the saint? Then free from personal bias. And then the 4th point, hridayena byanugyato, our heart feeling. You know, the heart knows, you know, so that there will be some confirmation from our conscious, from our inner heart, that yes, you know, this is the right thing to do. You know, so these are 4 helpful points in this regard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that helpful, Sevarupatiti?
Very helpful. Thank you, Vishakha.
Okay, well, I'm glad you raised that point. It's always relevant. Does anyone else want to add any thoughts to that discussion or to any of the verses that we just went through? We still have a few minutes left for today. Maybe, oh, we've lost, sorry, maybe Saraswati Didi, you want to share any words of wisdom? Saraswati Didi, she's the manager of our West London temple in England. Okay, oh, Kanakalata, thank you so much for your comment. And we look forward to next week. Okay. Okay, well, maybe we can just close with the preview from the 2nd chapter.
I think Angel wanted to say something.
Sorry, what did you say?
I had something that I had wanted to
Okay,
add.
yes, please. Sorry if I missed a hand raised or anything.
It's okay. You were looking at the chat. So at the beginning, you're talking about all these horns going off and blowing. And so I was raised with Christian stories, and it reminded me of Jericho. I was very impressioned upon this story the first time I heard it, where they went walking around with all these horns blowing and blowing, and even as a small child, I remember feeling very overpowered. So I can imagine that if you're standing in between 2 armies that it must have been very like overwhelming with sound. Just it strikes me like you're not just trying to think about this thing of like, do I have this war, but it's like already just in the thinking of it, you're struck of just the overwhelming sound and feeling like imagine standing next to like a bass on a speaker. Just it strikes you to your soul.
Absolutely, yeah, and thanks for bringing that to life. Yeah, I mean, what a scene, you know, what a scene, what a moment, you know. It's very, very powerful on all levels, you know, visually, orally, you know, emotionally,
sonically to our ears. Like if we sit, we might even hear the overwhelmed. You said that with the story coming out of this war, we don't necessarily think that would be what was happening. And I was thinking about a lot of the older stories that I was taught as a child. They went over the Odyssey and the War of Troy and things along these lines. So the concept that we have these stories coming out of this war or battle isn't unusual to me, but it is it is a very specific archetype. It is a very specific type of story, and that's something to stop and revel at. That there's only a very small slice here. There's all these other beautiful stories too, but it wasn't necessarily shocking to me.
Oh, that's very, very nice. That's a nice example, the Odyssey. And what was the other thing that you mentioned?
Well, I said the War of Troy, which would be the Odyssey and the Iliad, are
Okay.
both written about this. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but you have, if you look at, say the Aesir and the Vanir out of the Nordic stories, this is one group of deities and another group of deities holding a giant war.
Yeah, actually the direction I was going in, I didn't elaborate too much, was I was thinking about how in our own daily lives, we may face, a great variety of circumstances, but like, and that can be very bewildering and all consuming, but that, in the same way that, there's this battlefield scene, but then there's these deep philosophical truths, spiritual truths coming out of it. So how we want to try and live with this kind of higher, kind of like bird's eye view of our own daily life, like the dramas of our own daily lives, and try to see like what can we extract from these situations. Like we may have a tendency to just get lost in them, but let's try to keep a level of aloofness. And what can I take from this, like in connection with my eternal journey, in connection with my eternal spiritual journey? What can I draw from this? Like, what happened today is not just about X, Y, and Z, or he said, she did, or I did this, I did that. But what did I gain, in my journey within eternity? What can I gather? What can I extract in that sense? Not to live just like, like an insect in a sense, just living in connection with the immediate circumstances, but in terms of consciousness and devotion, what have I gained?
I was in the pharmacy today, and a woman was buying a toy for an upcoming holiday she's celebrating, and we got talking, and she mentioned the war in Ukraine, and I said it gives us this moment to stop and be thankful for the things that we might overlook. And I had on a pretty scarf, as I like my pretty scarves, and I said, this one's from Ukraine. I don't have it on right now. And we got talking about that, and we stopped, and I looked at the ceiling, and I said, and we don't have to worry about bombs coming in on our conversation. So maybe we can take this moment and look at our small battles, and maybe even project ourselves into where we might have that suffering as other people are experiencing during war right now. We have this curse of a blessing to stop and think about, what would I do there? How could I act more and stand outside? And this is what you're talking, to stand outside of that instance and go, how can I be used? How can I be of service? Yeah. And we don't have those pressures, but we could, like I said, we could pretend that we do, and see how might we be of service.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Angel. Cool. Anyone else want to share any final thoughts, or should we wrap up for today?
I'm just happy listening, Vishaka. There's a lot of.
Well, we're honored to have your presence, Didi.
I have something to share. Is what strikes me is it puts me, when you say like, okay, what can I take out of that? It's like I'm in an honest way checking in with myself and seeing that I would not react in a way of that it is even okay to have my life taken because of the righteousness. I feel like the level of righteousness inside of me, I haven't reached that point. I can basically identify with, I would be very afraid. And from that fear, I would probably try to defend myself because I was trying to be honest with myself. And I don't see myself being so ready to, I like it in my spirit. I'm totally all of that. If I was a movie, oh yeah, I so like have my life, sure. But the truth is, I probably had my fear preventing me from acting that way. Sorry. Hare Krishna.
Oh, that was beautiful, and that was honest. That was we feel privileged that you open your heart like that. Thank you for sharing, Gangalila. Okay, well, Chintamani or Gangalila, any final words, closing words for our group to wrap things up for this week? Do you want to pray us out, Gangalila?
I was hoping Chintamani is able to say something because we haven't heard of her.
Yeah, she's been very
No,
very quiet.
Hey, Dandavat, y'all. I'm with Sunbeer here, and we're buying some Navaratri items. I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, thanks to Gangalila letting us know. Love you all so much, and thanks for the class. We had a great time. Dandavat, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Chintamani. Thank you. Okay, well, do you want to pray us out, Gangalila?
Yeah, so thank you so much for so much insight, for unpacking it for us, to making it accessible for us lay women and men, because it's such a high topic. So thank you for making that beautiful bridge, so we can try to walk across, fly across, imagine ourselves across. Thank you so much, Shaka Didi, and looking forward to see you tomorrow. And yes, we can just chant 3 rounds of the Maha Mantra. And also what I said to Chintamani was, like, there is another festival. It's a Navaratri. It's like it's a festival of the goddess. So they do like from April 1st, April to April 10th, and then they have like a Durga 3 days, and then 3 days of Lakshmi worship, and then 3 days of Saraswati. So I think that's something she was talking about, and I know about those, and that was all. So, and we can just chant the Maha Mantra 3 times together if we all want to unmute, because it is always such a wonderful way to leave each other and stay connected. So if you all unmute for the Maha Mantra 3 times. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Rama,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Dandavat.
Dhanyavad. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. All these
Jai.
devotees and spirit seekers ki Jai. Shri
Jai.
Gurudev ki Jai. Shri Harinam
Jai.
Sankirtan ki Jai.
Jai.
Lord Premanande, wishing you all a nourishing and joyful week ahead.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vishaka Didi Marani ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you.